thought I'd give a sort of brief run through really of my impressions of the Xbox One and certainly around Forza, and actually show you a little bit of gameplay of one of the replays that I've saved during my couple of hours use of the system. So down to the Xbox itself, I've made a note of a few key items I wanted to sort of give you my impression on it, and some of these are sort of key items as regards to issues that the Xbox One that the Xbox 360 has had in the past. First of all, I suppose we'll talk about the fan or the noise of the Xbox One. It is virtually non-existent as regards to the noise. It is amazingly quiet. So it should be after the Xbox 360 debacle, and I suppose in essence really the PlayStation 3 as well, because that's not particularly silent, but the Xbox One is very, very, very quiet. You can't hear it, so it'll be perfect in a living room environment. So that's one major plus. When you switch the Xbox One on and you connect to the internet for the first time, it asks you to do an update. So there is a day one patch for the Xbox One. Now, based on the way that updates have happened before on the Xbox network for the Xbox 360, for instance, have been really snappy, and it's one side of the Xbox experience I've always liked. It hasn't been something that I thought, oh Jesus, it's updated now. It's going to be like ages, like the PlayStation 3 has been like. Now the patch for day one, which I suspect is an OS or firmware upgrade, whatever it is about 500 megabytes. Now I've got a fairly decently sized download capability, internet connection, about 60 meg. So for me that took about 5-6 minutes, something like that. I mean, it was rapid. It was, you know, the actual progress bar was going like that, you know, up to 100%. It wasn't like it was really good. Now admittedly I'm on a pretty fast internet connection, so if you've got a much slower one, obviously it will take a lot longer, but be prepared for that, guys. And I suspect today it may be slightly slower because more and more people are going to get the consoles and start switching them on today. So that's one thing you have to be aware of. But it's not a problem. It was really slick and it just worked absolutely fine. The controller. Now the controller is different on the Xbox One as opposed to the Xbox 360. It's slightly smaller, and it has been subtly changed. I would say it hasn't been dramatically changed, it's been subtly changed, and it fits really well in your hand. It really does. It's a nice controller. The D-pad I'm not actually sure about until I actually start using it properly, probably in a fighting game, which I actually haven't downloaded yet. I need to download Killer Instinct because that's obviously one of the games that's available online, and I will actually do that after this video. So it'll be interesting to see how that feels in a game. It feels slightly weird, slightly cheap or plasticky, the D-pad, but that may be just because it looks slightly different. It's a bit weird. It is a bit weird. In fact, what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab the controller now. Here's one I prepared earlier. So that's the Xbox One controller, and obviously because this machine that I've bought is a day one machine, it's got the stamp on it there on the controller. Just set it aside. And now the controller's on, you've got the light there which is displayed. So this is the D-pad, obviously, and it does, I don't know if you can make out, but it looks, because it's got like that sort of metal effect, it does feel quite cheap, but it may be I suspect it's really good. They're not going to sort of balls up the controller by not implementing a decent D-pad, I wouldn't have thought. But so you've got different buttons. You got the top buttons and the triggers. Now, this pad has, and one of the biggest differences on the pad is the fact it has rumble motors built in to provide some kind of force feedback or feedback on the triggers and the shoulder buttons. Now I'll go into that in a short while when I talk about Forza, but the controller itself does feel really nice. It really does. It's not. It feels a lot more sensitive than the existing 360 controller. Certainly in Forza, it's a lot more sensitive. You know, the thumb buttons, or whatever you call them, thumbsticks, are a lot more sensitive. So it gives you more feedback, in my opinion, as regards to movement. It will take a slight bit of getting used to, I think, but it does overall feel a much better joypad, certainly. You know, obviously you got your normal buttons there that you're used to. I mean, you look at this, you'll be used to that kind of layout. It doesn't look that dramatically different than 360 joypad, and in fact, they're about, it's slightly smaller, I suppose. I mean, that's a 360 joypad, and it is. That's going to knacker up the. You're not going to see that. You can't really see that, but it's slightly, ever so slightly smaller, I would say. Ever so slightly, but feels really nice. And for Forza, it's pretty stunning. It's pretty stunning. But I'll go on to that in a second. At the front end of the Xbox One interface, in some respect, that's had a bit of a Marmite sort of review, because it's trying to sort of emulate Windows 8 as regards to the tile usage in Windows 8. I haven't really got my head around Windows 8 yet. I've got a Windows 8 device, but I actually use the Windows 7 desktop on it. I really do need to start using Windows 8, and I'm glad that the Xbox One has gone down that route, because that will force me to start using the proper interface in Windows 8 on the OS side for computing. So I'm pleased about that, and spitting everywhere. I've had a little bit of a play in it, and it feels okay actually. I quite like it. I do quite like it. It's updated, it's new, it's a change from what was there before. Okay, I know the Xbox 360 is very similar, but this is an advanced version in effect of the 360 tiled style. You know, this is more like Windows 8. And the multitasking side of it is brilliant. The fact you can flip in and flip out of anywhere really within the OS, you know, from a game to settings, change settings, and the game's still running in the background. You go back to the game and you can open an app, and it works. It works really well. It's really slick, it's quick. So they've implemented that side really well, I think. And I'll look forward to see how that develops in the future, because you know, you can see where Microsoft want to go with this console. They don't want it just to be a game console. They want it to be some kind of hub, you know, in the living room. And you can see that. You can see that by the interface. And you know what? I don't think I'm that resistant to that. I think that's actually forward thinking, whereas PlayStation 4 is more about the gaming, which is absolutely fine now. But I think the whole thing's going to evolve. I think, and I think Xbox are one step ahead in that department, but obviously time will tell. Kinect. My Kinect sensor is still in the box. I haven't taken it out. I haven't used it. I have actually bought a game that utilises Kinect, Fighters Within. I'll try that later on. But it's great to know you don't have to have the Kinect connected to use the Xbox One. So it will remain in the box until I need to use it. But I will give it a try. And it'd be interesting to see how that works as well. SmartGlass. The Xbox sort of system now works with various applications. Sorry, with one application on various platforms, and it's called SmartGlass. I've had a quick play on it for the Xbox One, and it seems fairly limited in its use so far. I was hoping you could stream from the Xbox One to my smartphone, to my iPhone, and I could show you like a Forza 5 replay running on my phone, but it doesn't do that. I suspect that may come in the future, or if you can do it, I don't know how to do it. I've had a quick look on the internet and there wasn't any reference to that, so you know, limited use at the moment, but I suspect that will change over time. Certainly that will change over time. Something that I've actually started downloading some apps on the Xbox One for uploading videos, because what I want to look at is the possibility of uploading gameplay videos, hopefully to YouTube. And now there are some facilities on the OS as it stands, and applications you can download. So I need to look into that to actually see what functionality that will give me. Streaming will apparently come online at some point. It's not available now from day one, but streaming will come online. So there's a lot of other areas around the Xbox, I suppose the Xbox library, that I've never really looked at before, and I think I'll start taking benefit of them now. I really do. So yeah, it could be quite exciting actually moving forward with that. It'll be interesting, really interesting to see how that develops. Right, on to the gaming. So I'm going to be honest, I was slightly apprehensive about the Xbox One and PlayStation 4. Reading all the hype, all the negatives, all the positives, and I was a bit sort of yeah. I mean, I love my gadgets, I love my gaming, so I was always going to get an Xbox One and a PlayStation 4 without a doubt. But I wasn't expecting much. I really wasn't. And I suppose more so really with the Xbox One, because of the negative press it's had, as regards to how powerful it's not meant to be compared to the PlayStation 4, and it's always, what you hear and what you read, certainly prior to a console launch, it's pretty much absolute bullshit, because there's no real context behind it until you get the device in your hand, you see the games, you play the games, the final version of the games, the retail versions. Forget about the demos or the betas or whatever. You've got to play the finished product to get any decent sort of informed view, in my opinion. But because of everything that has gone on over the past sort of 6 months, I was fairly pessimistic. I was sort of setting myself up for yeah, it's all right, but sort of thing. Well, I've got to be honest, I've been pleasantly surprised. I think the whole Xbox experience with regards to the front end, the way it works, in the way that it just does work. It's there's no issues, all the connection, all the sign up, it just works. It's so quick and easy. Like I said, I like the front end, and I suppose coming into the gaming side of it, you're setting yourself up now, and I put Forza on this morning, and it is, I don't want to over-egg this, but it's blown me away. It really has blown me away. I was expecting, I suppose in essence, I was really expecting something that was going to be a bit better or about as good as the best that's on the Xbox 360 at the moment, but it's genuinely blown me away. It looks stunning. It really does look stunning. It's 1080p, 60 frames a second. Not that matters at the end of the day, but it just looks stunning, and it's not it's the overall presentation and environments. There's so much more detail compared to a lot of Forza 4, for instance. It's not just about the resolution. It really isn't. I mean, obviously the bump in resolution helps, but the detail, the draw distances and it just looks really, really nice. For the first time I've looked at that, I see Forza and I can directly relate that to PC gaming quality. It really does look that good. You know, the environments are simply stunning. They really are. No video will do it justice until you see it moving. It really won't. And you'll look at a screen and you'll just be looking at all these different things you can see now, and like I said, the draw distances, the texture qualities, and it is simply stunning. Now, I suppose the most important part of any game is actually how it plays. Forget about how it looks. That's the initial, wow, that looks awesome. But then you've got to start playing it. And Forza 5 does not let people down, or it won't let people down. It is great. I love the Forza series, and this is no exception. It plays really well. And because the actual sort of environment you're playing in is that much better, it makes the game that much better to me. It makes the experience of playing it that much better. It's, you know, there's little things in there, but there's loads of little things that all add up to something that's pretty awesome, to be honest. Sort of going back to the controller side of it and the built-in rumble stroke feedback facility now on the triggers. I didn't know really what to expect with that. Again, until you've actually experienced it, you don't really know what it means, but that adds a fair bit to the game. You know, when you're changing gear, you get this sort of kickback on the triggers, as if you're changing down or changing up, and you get the revving, and it's that is quite a small thing, but it adds again to a number of other things within the game that just make it great. It is pretty impressive, and it plays really well. The car handling as regards to the interaction between the controller and what the car does on the screen is great. It's really, really responsive, so much better than the previous pad in my opinion. Like I said, a lot more sensitive. For some that might take a bit of getting used to. I think you can change that within the game settings, but it feels nice. It really does feel nice. Something that I hadn't really done on previous Forzas was use the in-car view. I don't know why, but I've always felt that the in-car view has reduced the graphical environment, you know, because obviously the screen size has been reduced effectively as regards to what you're seeing outside of the cockpit. On Forza 5, it just feels right. It's so detailed, and it just feels right. For once, I don't know, but it just clicks, and I think I'll be using in-car from now on. It just feels right, and you'll see it when you play it. It really is good. It really is good. Now Forza 5, because it's a release game, and there's been a bit of backlash so far. Well, not a bit of backlash, but some minor negative comments about the depth of Forza 5. It's not like Forza 4 or previous Forzas. You can tell that content isn't as abundant as what it is on previous versions, and apparently this has been down to release schedule. They just couldn't fit everything in for the release schedule. But there is plenty in there. You know, there is plenty in there. It's just not as big as previous Forzas. I expect stuff will come online via download content, and of course there's no argument behind that. The reason they've done this is to make money. Okay, perhaps it is, but the constraints were always going to be around release dates and so forth. And I'm glad that they managed to do this for release, because it's a great game. It is a great game. I can't wait to get online with this with my mates. It's going to be an absolute blast. And I always remember actually when I bought the 360 and I got Project Gotham Racing, and that I thought was a clear difference. That game, the way it looked compared to what was on the Xbox, this is the same to me. So going from the 360 to the Xbox One, this has been the same kind of impact for me. And I didn't think it was going to be, but it has been at the moment. So I suppose really initial impressions of it is I'm really impressed. I am really impressed. If this is what they're doing, you know, if we take Forza as an example, if this is what the machine's capable of doing during a fairly short development period, and this early on in the sort of development cycle of the console, I can't wait to see what's going to be up and coming. And if the PlayStation 4 is that much more powerful than the Xbox, I can't wait to get the PlayStation 4. As regards to newer games, I think the launch games on the PlayStation 4 aren't that great, if I'm being honest. But it certainly has the potential. And like I said, if it is more powerful, that much more powerful than the Xbox, I can't wait to see what's going to come out on PlayStation 4. I mean, it's win-win as far as I'm concerned. But for a day one experience, I'm pretty much over the moon, guys, and from a sort of racing perspective as regards to racing games, I love racing games. Forza 5 is awesome. It really is awesome, and I would say it's worth buying an Xbox One just for Forza. If you like racing games, it's tremendous. It really is. So I think the future's bright either way, whether you get a PlayStation 4 and Xbox. I don't think it really matters in essence, and I think they've got a lot of potential. They've got a lot more potential, I think, than what I thought they would have. So yeah, I'm suitably impressed. Right, I'm going to jump to some gameplay video of Forza. It's one of the replays that I stored, but it's not a direct capture because I haven't got any capture facilities where I can capture 1080p, unfortunately, at the moment. So I've had to take it off video cam, so it's not the best quality, but it will give you a real good idea about what the finished version looks like. And hope you enjoyed the video, guys. I'll speak to you again soon.